Many concept artists use 3D Code for its voxel modeling toolset, which is free from topological constraints that you'd find in a poly modeling application. And typically they'll export directly from the sculpt workspace to a third-party renderer, which is well equipped to handle very dense meshes. However, the cost of that third-party renderer may be outside the budget of many artists, so I want to provide an alternate workflow that one might consider. It will require a little bit more time and effort, but not much, because we're going to be using auto retopo as well as auto UV mapping, which will still yield a fast workflow, but give us the flexibility to render in any render engine, including real-time engines. Let's go ahead and get started now. On an object like this, where you have multiple components, you probably would want to stop and auto retopologize each element once you've completed it. You do that by choosing the layer in the Vox Tree panel and right-clicking, then choosing Auto Retopo. 3D Coat currently has two different auto retopology engines. One is the default, and the other is a third-party engine called Instant Meshes. The downside to using Instant Meshes is that the topology is not as clean as 3D Coat's default Auto Retopo engine. As you can see here, I've already auto retopologized this shoulder pad, and 3D Coat does a very nice job of it. The default engine will generally take longer to calculate, but it delivers a much cleaner looking mesh, and that can mean cleaner UVs as well as a cleaner looking render when we are finally done. When the object is more simplistic or maybe an intermediate level of complexity, such as the shoulder region or this inner part here, also these rings, those are a breeze for the default engine to handle. Where instant meshes would first come into consideration is whenever you are working on more complex objects and you find the default engine is struggling a bit to generate a satisfactory result. Let's go back to the scope workspace now, and I want to select the shoulder plate. To do that, I'll hover over the object and hit the H key. Then I can hide that layer. I'll next go to the Retopo workspace and hide this mesh as well. I have a copy of the Vox Tree layer panel here. I'll hit the H key again to pick the part that I want to work on next. Then right-click over the layer and choose Auto Retopo. In the pop-up dialog, the main parameter to be concerned with is the estimated poly count at the top. On a simplified object like this, 3000 should suffice. Okay. And it's going to walk me through this wizard. This first step is asking, do I want to paint select areas where I need a higher degree of polygonal density? In this case, I do not. I'll just click next. And now it's asking, do I want to apply some stroke guides? Now, if it has problems adhering to hard edges, because as you can see, these are fairly soft edges, if they aren't adhering the way you want, then you might apply some stroke guides on the next attempt. I'll click next. All right, so I've got that done, and I'll go ahead and hide that retopo layer and also hide that object. Let's see what else we have here. Hover over that neck ring. I'm going to hide and unhide just to make sure that it's not connected to something else. I'll right click on the layer and choose Auto Retopo once again. As long as the default engine is working well for me, I'll just continue using it and rely on instant meshes more or less as a backup. In this case, I don't need that much, so I'm going to go with 1000. Hit OK. Then I'll click Next and Next, because I don't need to paint areas where I want extra density, nor do I need stroke guides at this point. All right, looks good. I'll now hide that layer and also hide the voxel object as well. All right. I'll now select the topmost object here by hovering over it and hitting the H key. I can hold down the Alt key and click on the visibility icon to isolate it. I'm going to shift click and drag that one to its parent layer, which merges them into one layer. So let's right click and choose Auto Retopo. And this time let's choose Instant Meshes, so we can see a comparison. 10,000 is probably a little bit high, but I think it's okay. All right. I'm going to need to separate this bottom half and retry it because it has holes and recesses that are sometimes problematic. It did a fairly good job here. I'll go ahead and separate them again. I'll switch to surface mode and go back to the sculpt workspace. Surface mode has an operation that will allow me to separate disconnected parts into their own layers. Rejectify, separate. Okay. We now have one parent layer and 3 child layers. This time I'll use the default auto retopo engine. Next. Let me click cancel because I'm going to now switch to the select tool. While in faces mode, I can double click on the mesh to select all contiguous faces and then hit the delete key. I'll do the same with this other object. Hide that one. And right click and choose auto retopo once more. I might just go ahead and add a hotkey to auto retopo. And I'll do that now by hitting the end key on my keyboard. Then I can make the assignment. And maybe I want to use Control A. Let's try that combination now. Control A. There we go. Straight into auto retopo. We don't have to right click and go through another sub menu. We can just go straight to it. This time, let's go with 2000. Next, next. Okay, yeah, I think we got a little bit better result that time. We can hide that, hide it over here, unhide this option, and once more we'll hit our hotkey, and I might go with 3000. Next, and next. This is a situation where I probably would try instant meshes if the first attempt with the default algorithm doesn't quite work. Another option is to maybe smooth this. Let's delete that. And I'll come back to the sculpt workspace. This time I'm going to switch to voxel mode. Because of its volumetric nature, voxels are really good at fusing disconnected parts together or filling holes and gaps. We will smooth all. Do that a second time. I think that'll be it. Maybe. One more time. There we go. So I can see it's closed right here. And one last time. Another option, if we have gaps like that have been closed or we've merged objects together, it's always a good idea when in voxel mode to fill any voids that may be inside, any pockets, because that can interfere with the auto retopo algorithm. Now, let's go back to our hotkey combination, try it again. All right. So that's a satisfactory result. I think if we needed super clean topology, I could try and do that manually, but no, we're good. For the moment, I'm going to unhide the Instant Meshes version, and I'll go ahead and run 3D Coat's default algorithm on that one as well. Use my hotkey. 3000 is about all that's needed for that. Hit OK. While it's calculating, I'll stop the video here and we will pick up in part 2.